Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Today, we actually, this is an interesting story about how we have this guest on. Her name's Wylene Benson. I actually heard about her first from some videographers who were like, man, you should go check out Wylene because we work with her. She's awesome. I think she'd be a great connection. And that was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And it just, whatever happened, never happened. I don't know. I listened to her podcast because she also has a podcast, which we'll talk about. But she hired her first mindset coach after she had a stress-related heart attack. So think about that. Like after your life changes and you almost die, that's when you decide it's time to make a change. And she basically attributes living a life devoted to purpose. So she's been able to live a life of purpose because she found out that was essential. And the first step began her journey of discovery on her own natural gifts related to helping others see how to receive wealth and a Christ-centered living fit hand in hand. And if you know me on any level, then I could have wrote that same thing about what I love doing. So I love helping people return to Christ. And I love helping people understand how money relieves stress so they can do so. So this is going to be a lively discussion. I'm excited. Not very many times do I get people who have like the same thought processes, or at least put in words the same things I do. So we're going to get to know each other and you get to listen in on this. But Wylene, go ahead and share your story and why you're so passionate about what you're doing. Start at the beginning so we can get an understanding of what led up to the events to create who you are today.
Sure, I would love to. Thank you so much, Samuel. And I really appreciate you sharing a little bit more about you and the background of when you heard about me first. I actually didn't know that story, so that's kind of cool. And to know that we are so closely connected in our purpose and mission. I've been on podcasts before where I felt like I kind of have to tone myself down a little bit and maybe not talk quite so much about Christ or God or whatever. And it's just really refreshing to be in a place where I feel like I can be completely authentic and true to who I know I am. So thank you. Thank you for being you. And thank you for inviting me to be on the podcast today. As you were talking, I was just kind of allowing myself to go back over my history a little bit and see where I wanted to start. You already mentioned that I had a stress-related heart attack about 8 years ago. That really started me on my journey of becoming who I am today, where I help people with their purpose, really understanding that I have a purpose. And that was what the stress-related heart attack was caused by, was living a life that wasn't living in purpose. But I feel like I really want to go back even farther. I don't usually go back, as far as I'm going to share with you, your audience today, that about 25 years ago, I was doing Mary Kay. If those of you who don't know, it's a direct sales company. It's been around since 1963. I remember because that was the year I was born. So it's been around forever. And I did Mary Kay for 18 years. And I was a director. I had earned a couple of cars in Mary Kay. I had a really great group of women that I led. And it was right about the time of 9/11. I remember sitting in my house. I had my little kids. My kids are grown now. I have little kids. And this happened. And I really was faced with this idea of, is there really nothing more to life than just helping people look good on the outside? And that was like a turning point in my life. And I started making some changes in my meetings that I did, my weekly meetings that I did with the women. But that was back in the time when mentors and coaches and, life coaches and things like that wasn't really a thing. And people didn't really hire people. I mean, there was like some books that you could read and stuff. But I was just like branching out and kind of doing this thing on my own and trying to help people get deeper into, who are you? What do you want to, what is your legacy that you want to leave in your life? And it was like people would look at me like I had three heads. They were just like, what the heck are you talking about? It was a totally different time then and totally different mindset. So I actually, because I didn't have any training, I didn't really know where I was going. I kind of crashed and burned with that. And so instead of continuing on with my Mary Kay career, which I thought I was going to be doing that for the rest of my life, I decided to leave that and I went back to corporate America and started working for other people. And, I was a mom, raising kids. And then when I left Mary Kay, my kids were a little bit older. So I felt like I had the freedom to be able to do that. But the problem, once I got back into working in the real world, was that I felt like I was building somebody else's legacy. I was showing up. I'm really an amazing employee for people. And I felt like I was taking on this idea that, I wanted to build a legacy by helping somebody else build their legacy. And that's in my book, The 7 Gateways, Your Map to Integrity in Life and Business. That's something that I share with you as my story of, being in corporate America, being in line to become the next CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. And then 2 weeks later, I got laid off. So I had put all of my heart and life into building somebody else's legacy. And then it was just cut off. And that was kind of the beginning of sort of a spiral down time in my life where I went from, feeling very capable, very confident in who I am to every day and every job that I got laid off from or got fired from, I got fired from a job. All these different things started really eroding my self-confidence and my self-esteem and my worth, just really, really feeling what I was worth out in the marketplace. And so it was at one of those jobs that I had kind of spiraled down to. So going from being, in line to be CEO of a multi-million-dollar company down to the last job that I had out in the workforce was a shipping manager. I worked pretty much by myself, surrounded by boxes. I shipped snowmobile parts. That was where I was when I had a heart attack. I was actually at work when I had this heart attack. And the heart attack, the doctor had told me it was called broken heart syndrome. And the more that I got to like journaling and really understanding about my journey and myself and what I was worth and where I had kind of sunk to, I realized that it was because I was not living a life of purpose. I didn't have a legacy of my own that I was building. And so, hiring that first coach after I had the heart attack and just really diving in and finding what my purpose and mission was and going to God every single day and asking him, what do I need to know? Just teach me. And I really was divinely tutored. And that book, The 7 Gateways, all came from that time where I was rebuilding myself and rediscovering who I was and really understanding my purpose and my legacy and my mission. So I would say that was that in a nutshell. That's kind of my journey that led up to who I am today.
And how long ago was, did you publish your book?
Just January, I think January was when it actually was, I got my first copies in hand. I had pre-sold quite a few copies, but actually having the print book done. I have an audio also now, and it's in ebook form as well. So, just since January, but it was actually in creation for about 3.5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting how. Well, I'm curious why do you feel like it was in creation for 3 years? What took you 3 years to get it published?
I knew that, this path that I was on of discovering my purpose. At first, I thought that the path that I was being given was only for me. It was just for me to help me get out of the place where I was, to get to a much higher, more, the best person that I could be. I thought it was just for me. But as I started looking over it, I was like, this is a blueprint. This is a way that people can go through these 7 gateways: faith, abundance, charity, prosperity, obedience, humility, and equity. Those are the 7 gateways. And I started looking over that list, and what I had learned, these quantum leaps. They were quantum leaps for me. And as I started looking over it, I realized that it wasn't just for me, that it was actually a step-by-step plan for people to go from, being stuck in a dark place where you have no idea how to get out of it. You feel like you're completely trapped within your own body, that, your spirit and your heart and your soul is just dying to get out and create. But because of either your limiting beliefs or the circumstances that have been created or whatever it is, that you feel like you can't get out. And that's what these 7 gateways are. So from me, experiencing these 7 gateways and then actually communicating those on paper in a way that other people could understand them and that they could simply and effectively walk through these gateways as well. And then, of course, just lots of editing and great people to help me incorporate my story into it and everything to make it interesting. So it wasn't like a textbook. It was just, it took some time to get this all put together.
I love that. There's so much gold in this. I'm excited to tear it apart in a good way, dissect it. Okay, so yeah. One of the things that is so important, not just so she recognized this from a perspective of her career. So in contrast, she was helping people look good on the outside. And by the way, my mom did Mary Kay. Lots of my friends do Mary Kay. It's a great company. I have nothing negative to say about it. And it is very much look pretty on the outside. Now, and I think this is a true principle, you often feel how you look, right? So if you look in the mirror and you feel and you look and you think that you look bad, you're going to feel bad inside. If you look in the mirror and you think, man, I'm looking good today, then that's extra confidence. So it does help, like your outer shell does help how you feel about yourself on the inside. So not to make any mistake there. However, the ability to look beyond that and say, okay, how am I really changing somebody's on the inside? If they only feel good about themselves when they have this makeup on, am I really making a lasting impact? Am I making a change that's going to change their life and the next generations? Is it a legacy-proof thing? And that's where I think it's crucial to understand what exactly are you doing. And when she asked herself that question, people weren't quite into her being that position in their life. Okay. And it doesn't mean that those people who she was leading when she starts asking these questions, I guess I'm curious, I'll ask you this. Why do you think that they were not interested? Do you think it was because it was just so out of left field from how they saw you? Or do you think they really weren't interested in discovering themselves on a deeper level that way?
No, I definitely think that there was an interest. I remember in the days building up to the first meeting that I had, where I actually tried to teach people, there was a lot of excitement generated. It was like I had people coming out of the woodwork, people who had not attended a meeting in, months, were all of a sudden like, I'm going to be there, I'm going to come. I think there definitely was an interest. I think it was a little bit of a combination of me not being ready, me not having the training. I had never had a mentor. I didn't really know. I was like discovering, it probably could have been called more like a mastermind. If I had known what a mastermind was at the time, we might have been able to do something there. But I think it was just, I was a little bit ahead of the curve. I was a little bit, on the crest of the evolution of people really accepting this idea that there were people who had gone through something that could actually help you get through it a little bit faster. And I'm even right now, I feel like I'm on the crest of new things as we're evolving, in our current time right now in history, where there's a lot of uncertainty about the future. I feel like the new program that I just created, the Lord's Way to Wealth, is really on the crest of, moving forward. But the difference this time is I have had that mentoring. I do, know what it takes to help to inspire people and bring people along with me. So yeah, I think it was probably a combination of the time and also me not being quite ready.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back at that period of time, Tony Robbins was around. As far as like life, if you want to throw them into life coach area, it's pretty much Tony Robbins. Like, he was the godfather of life coaching for most people. There's a lot of business coaches, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots and lots of business coaches, but specifically in the life coaching space, it was pretty much Tony Robbins. And from that, I mean, there might've been a few other people, but no one quite on that level. And now there's tons and tons of people who are specifically helping you with more life practical things and not just on the business or money side of things. So that's awesome. When you went back to corporate America, this is interesting. And I hope that people are listening, but you end up feeling like you're building somebody else's legacy, and then it all got taken away from you. Many people, they feel like, and you use this word, there was security there. Mm-hmm. How would you define security? Like, what is security when it comes to job security or income security? Let's just label it as income security, because I think that will broaden out the explanation a little bit. But how would you define income security?
I've had so many different experiences. Like, I've owned several businesses. I've started several businesses. I've been a consultant in a lot of different businesses, and, worked for myself, obviously, with Mary Kay and other things. And I used to believe that job security or income security came from being a good employee. And so when I would go to work, I would totally take this on as if I were the owner of the business. Like, what would I be doing today if I was the owner of the business? And that kind of backfired on me also. And you can read about that in my book. But now what I realized is that you can put your guts into everything that you do. But if you're putting your security into somebody else's hands, there may be outside circumstances. Well, like even right now, the way we're going, the things that are happening right now, there's a lot of people who are not working through no fault of their own, through no fault of their business, or their boss, would probably never have said you're fired, but they're not there. So when you put your security into somebody else's hands or into some outside circumstance, then that's not true security. I feel like the only true security is when you yourself know what your natural gifts are and how to turn that into something that other people need. That is really your only true security.
Could not have said it better myself. I'm going to go back and challenge on something you said. And I'm sure you didn't mean it this way, but unfortunately, sometimes people, they'll hear something, and as long as it confirms a prior belief of theirs, they'll accept it at face value rather than thinking about it more deeply. And this is why I want to tear this down. Okay. The idea that they're not working through no fault of their own is absolutely contrary to the idea of they chose to put their security in somebody else's hands. The fact that they chose to put security and their security in somebody else's hands means it was their choice to begin with. It is absolutely their fault they're not working. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not pretend that, oh, somebody else happened. I'm a victim of coronavirus. I'm a victim of layoffs. Bullcrap. You're a victim of not choosing to create, and that's your own fault. Okay, that's my opinion. It's your own fault. Now,
I'm going to agree with you with also an added little piece is that I truly believe that our beliefs is what creates our outcome. So if there is the belief that I need to have somebody else to create security for me, then the outcome is going to be produced from that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's because of that that I love doing this podcast. This is why I started this podcast, because it's my belief that that's not true. It's my belief that the only security, as you said, is in identifying your identity and learning how to add value to others. That's the only security. It doesn't matter I work in money, right? I help people with money all the time. I teach people how money works. And the irony is money is nothing more than an object. And value is really what we need to have a more honest conversation about. And as long as you know how to add value, it doesn't matter what the money, we could use currency. Let's exchange the word money for currency. It doesn't matter what the currency exchange is or the monetary exchange is. It could be Spanish dollars. It could be pesos. It could be whatever it is. That could change, and it doesn't change Wylene's belief in herself. It doesn't change my belief in myself. It doesn't change Wylene's ability to provide value to others and receive adequate compensation in whatever form of exchange we're using, or myself, right? So because we've identified our identity, we can then add value, and it doesn't matter what that monetary exchange is, we're going to be taken care of, and we're going to have security inside of ourselves and peace and comfort and hope, because we know we can add value. It's people who have given their ability, and we're going to get into this here in a second, to other people that are in pain. So when she's in line to become a CEO, guys, like think about that. You're in line to become a CEO of a massive company and you get laid off. The problem is if you've built your identity around what other people think of you, I don't care if let's say you're this beautiful woman, you've got 3 kids and a wonderful husband. And then you find out that your wonderful husband's been seeing some other woman on the side, right? Your whole identity was built on your perfect life and how other people saw your perfect life. Not always, but a lot of women, this is the case. And so when they find out that they would have been passed over or rejected or whatever, it destroys them from the inside out and they crumble. When in reality, their identity, who they are, there was always value there, and it had nothing to do with who their husband was. It has nothing to do with who their kids were. It has nothing to do with that. You as an individual have value regardless of anything around you. And it's important to understand that to create boundaries and ultimately create true peace, happiness, joy, and security in your life. And so when you got fired and laid off, maybe go a little bit more into that. I'm sure you've journaled about this at some point. What aspects of your identity did you have tied to your ability to perform in the corporate world?
Everything was totally tied to that. I started my first business when I was 13, and my identity has always been, up until that point, had always been attached to the accomplishments that I created personally or professionally. That was where my identity completely was. And that's why, and I'm so glad that you shared that, because so many people do attach their identity to something like how good of a mom I am, or how good of a wife I am, or how perfect my life looks, or whatever. But what happened when I got laid off, at first I was just like super confident. I was like, you know what? I still got a lot of good years left in me. I'm an awesome, I know that I can provide value somewhere else. And I went out there and I started, just looking for the next opportunity. The problem was that I didn't find a next opportunity that was equal to, in like professional prestige and pay and all of that, of what I had. So it was like, okay, that's fine. I've got this new job. There's room to move up. I know how to move up. I know how to do what's necessary for people to love what I do and to promote me. So I still, have this great opportunity. But that was the job that I got fired from. Like a year later, I was supposed to go in for an employee review and was going to get a $2 raise. That's what I thought that I was going to get. And it would have brought me back up almost to where I was, in the prior position. And instead, they said, we're letting you go. We're firing you. You're fired. Here's your final check. Let me walk you to the door. Grab your stuff on the way out. That was my experience. And from that was when I really started questioning my value. That was the moment when I was like, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. And then the next job that I got was like $5 an hour less than and it was because that's what I felt like I was worth. And, even within that other job that I got, I started doing things that I typically would never have allowed myself to stoop to in a professional situation, because I used to know how much more valuable I was. I was actually cleaning the toilets, and there's nothing wrong with cleaning toilets. I clean toilets at my house, but I've never been hired to do that. I always felt like I was, capable of so much more, but I had allowed my own value, the value that I gave, I had allowed it to slip to that point where I didn't feel like I was worth any more than that.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing. I've been on this, I don't know if it's a rant or I've thought it for a long time, but it's been coming up more and more in my life. Specifically, I think because of the coronavirus and people feeling victimized by life. And I just don't have a lot of patience for victims. So I want to help you proceed. It's not like I want to get you out of my life. I want to help you move to the next level of thought. But like becoming the CEO of your own life has been like the biggest for me. And it's interesting because I don't know where I learned this. I think I put better words to it, which we're going to get into here in a second. I put better words to it more recently. But even from a young age, when I had the first job I remember being asked to do when I was, I would have been like 9, 10 years old. The neighbor lady had some weeds that she wanted pulled, and we were homeschooled. So my mom volunteered us to go over there and pull weeds, and she was going to pay us. So we went over there, and the woman was nice enough to say, okay, well, this is the job I need done. What do you think it's worth? She was treating us respectful, even though we were 10-year-old, 11-year-old kids. And so we're like, yeah, I think it's worth about $5 an hour. Like, I would rather basically it was this or doing homework. So to put that in perspective, I didn't like homework, but I'd rather do homework than do back-breaking work for less than $5 an hour, right? That was in my mind. I knew what I was doing. And so we came home. She said no. We came home. My mom's like, hey, why aren't you over there pulling weeds? And we're like, well, because she didn't want to pay us what we thought we were worth. And she's like, yeah, right. So she marched us back over there. We had to pull weeds for free. It sucked. But what I learned, basically what I'm saying is I've always had this mindset of like, I'm going to determine what my work is worth. And if you like it, great. If you don't, fine. Like I don't need to let you define my worth. And then later I was 14 years old. I was working as a brick landscaper, and same type of situation. I was managing a crew of 5 adults laying brick, while the owner of the company, he would get all the materials lined up and set there. And then he would disappear. He would come back to do some cuts for brick. But other than that, I ran the whole crew. I was getting paid $7.50 an hour. They were getting paid $10.50. And if you think you can keep from your employees what you're paying everybody, people talk. Like the reality is people talk. Don't be dishonest. Don't be cutting random deals here, because the reality is people talk. Okay, there's no point in beginning that type of behavior because you can't ever keep up with it. But so I found out they were getting paid more than me. So I confronted the owner of the company about it. I was like, look, man, I'm the crew lead. Like I'm the one telling these guys what to do. I'm 14 years old. You need to pay me at least what you're paying them. He's like, oh, well, they have families and they have all this other reason why they should get paid more than me. And I was like, well, look, and this was like on a Thursday or Friday. I was like, look, you can either pay me what you're paying them or I'm done. Like I'm not going to keep working for you. And then he called me back later that day and he tried to fire me. And I was like, what? No, like you don't get this. I quit already unless you're paying me more. But the point is, from a young age, I've had this mindset of I'm going to determine my value. And it's so important because if you're walking into, even if you are an employee, okay, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. Wylene has said that multiple times here as well. But even if you're an employee, I would still think it's best to think of yourself as a CEO of your company. Your company is you and whoever your shareholders are, your spouse and your children. That's your company. And it's your job to negotiate a contract that's satisfactory for both parties involved, the company you're working for, your employer, and you. And if at any point you feel like there's a discrepancy there, as in you're being taken advantage of, it's your duty as the CEO of your company to either renegotiate that contract, get out of that contract, and get somewhere where it's better in your ability. It doesn't matter if you get paid hourly, commission, salary. It doesn't matter. That's not important. The important thing is, are you thinking like a business owner? Are you thinking like I'm the CEO? Or are you thinking like a victim? Please, like I think of Oliver Twist when they're like, hey, please, sir, can I have some more? It's like, no, like, why would I give you more? I'm trying to make my company profitable. Prove that you're worth more, and then we'll have a conversation. And so speak to that a little bit from that language. How important was it for you to, when you pulled yourself out of it, to start thinking again, I know my worth, I know my value, and I'm not going to accept less?
It was everything, because that's actually what caused the heart attack, was the incongruency of my spirit, my heart, knowing really what I was worth and the value that I had to bring to the table, and living something completely out of alignment. That was really what caused the heart attack, was being completely out of alignment with the job and the time that I was giving to this job. And like I say, there's nothing, it's totally moral and ethical, to work in a place, where you're doing manual labor or shipping, cleaning toilets, whatever, those things that I was doing. There's nothing wrong with those things that I was doing, but it was totally out of alignment with what I was capable of. And that is where that incongruency, you are not being authentic, you're not honoring yourself, you're living well below your privilege, you're going to cause, something's going to give. There's going to be stress, there's going to be, your spirit is going to rebel, and there's going to be something, my heart, I lost function of half of my heart because of that. And I know that that's what caused it.
So let's, man, we're going to run out of time here, which is, but I want to ask this question, because I think this is, for me, this is directly connected to my mission and what I'm trying to accomplish in life. But, I forget who I first heard this from. I've heard it from multiple people at this point, so I don't know who to attribute the quote to. So if you're listening and you feel like you've said this before you heard me say it, great. You can take credit for it. But the idea that, first off, let's start with just the concept of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, I think, it's essential to maintain a certain level of cognitive dissonance, but ultimately you can't maintain cognitive dissonance forever. One of two things is going to happen. So let's first talk about what cognitive dissonance is. Cognitive dissonance is when you believe something about yourself or about somebody else, and the results aren't showing up. Your unmet expectations, essentially, is a more layman's term of cognitive dissonance. Okay? Well, in a form of cognitive dissonance, we're going to say there's a higher level thought and there's a lower level thought, just to make terms simple. If you start to believe higher level things, but lower level results keep happening, and you spend your time around lower level thought people, then one of two things is going to happen. Either your body doesn't like cognitive dissonance, so either you will start to lower your thought process to blend in with other people, or those people will remove themselves and you will be attracting, or you will be surrounded by more people who have your same level of thought. Your results will increase. The problem is most people don't like cognitive dissonance because it's painful, and in Wylene's case, it almost killed her, right? Where if you maintain this higher level of thought and it takes a long time for the results to show up and to rise to that level of cognitive dissonance, then that can be depressing, can give you anxiety, okay? This is where a lot of people get into this feeling of being suicidal. I mean, and this is a very real thing. And maybe Wylene wasn't aware that she was suicidal, okay, but her body knew that it can't. Like when you read the scriptures, again, this is where we're getting into Christ too. A house divided against itself cannot stand. You cannot serve both God, this higher level thought, and mammon, this lower level thought. It's not physically possible. It's not like you shouldn't. It's not physically possible from an energy perspective. Think of yourself like a magnet. Okay, what happens when you have two opposing magnets trying to put them together? They resist each other. Well, as that cognitive dissonance increases, the magnetism of the energy of your body is doing the same thing, and it's literally tearing you apart from inside out. Like that is, from an energy perspective, electricity, which is what we're all made of, atoms and quantum physically, that's what's physically happening. So then we get suicidal and we want to kill ourselves. It's not that we actually want to end the function of our electrical being. It's that we're recognizing there's a part of our physical being that needs to exit our life. And that is those thoughts, those mindsets, those relationships that are holding us back, that are causing that tension. So here's the question. When you decided to fully live in your purpose and just go for it, regardless of all of the fear of what other people were saying, how much, like, what did that do for you physically from a healing perspective?
Oh, 100% wholeness. The doctor actually had told me that my heart would be working at 40% of its capacity for the rest of my life. And because of my changes, that I made in my mindset, because I started on this path and started asking day by day, what can I do, to get more in alignment, and getting these 7 gateways. And ultimately, you've given me a perfect segue to actually share a little bit about the Lord's Way to Wealth too. But when I started doing that, I experienced a complete wholeness. Within 6 months, I was hiking the highest mountain peak in Utah County. So it is everything. It's everything to make that commitment to be your highest self, to live in the highest capacity that you can be, and to be in alignment with that. That is everything to a whole and purposeful life. And can I just kind of share a little bit about the Lord's Way to Wealth? Because back in November, so it's been several months ago, I asked the question because I was experiencing some of this cognitive dissonance. I was living my purpose. I was serving people. I was influencing. I was, giving value in a way that was really serving me, that was serving God. And I still was struggling financially. So it was like this cognitive dissonance. It's like, what is the deal? I feel like I'm doing everything right, and I'm not experiencing the financial independence that I feel like I'm capable of. And so I asked the question, is there a different way to wealth if you're on the Lord's errand? And the answer came, that was on a Friday. The whole weekend long, I was just like constant download of spiritual confirmation of the answer to this question is absolutely yes. There is a different way to wealth if you're living your purpose and if you're taking God as your partner. And that was the final piece. The 7 gateways was a way for me to teach people how to get from not knowing what their purpose is or living totally out of alignment with it to becoming, living a life of purpose. The Lord's Way to Wealth now takes that one step further, and you can actually make money with it. And that was, it all came from asking that one question, and then the cognitive dissonance went away. Everything was in alignment. I, was able to understand things the way that God understands them.
Sure. So let's try and summarize that. I have my own opinions about the way God understands money, but I'm curious if you were to summarize what the Lord's Way to Wealth, like the summary of it. And I know there's going to be so much more depth. That's why if you guys are listening to this, you just need to go work with her to get the more depth, because there's no way we can cover it on this. Well, even if we could cover it on this podcast, that's not the purpose of the podcast. So, but I'm curious, like if you were to summarize what that added step is, or how he views that process, what would you say that is?
Everything that we've discovered, I did actually create a mastermind for this, and we've been creating this over the past 4 months. We just finished the last module of it yesterday. So it is an actual online course now. I just talked to my person that's putting everything together. It should be ready by Monday as an online course. And there is a Facebook group called The Lord's Way to Wealth that anybody can join. It's a free public group. But in this mastermind, we discovered principles that are scripturally based and scientifically based. And most of it is that we have created different meanings to the scriptures and the way, that God the information is already here. We have the information, but we have misinterpreted or we've changed the meanings to line up with our beliefs or whatever, like limiting beliefs that we have within ourselves about money or whatever, to make us feel like we're okay in the mediocrity that we live in. But when you actually read it and understand it, the lessons and everything are super clear. And I would say that as far as God's understanding of money and what he wants us to understand, we are heirs to everything that he has. That is scriptural. We are equal with Christ as an heir to everything that he has. He has created a world where abundance is, you plant one apple seed, you get 1 billion apples over its lifetime. There is such abundance that's available to us right now. And especially right now during this COVID-19, we feel like we're trapped. I needed spinach the other day and I was like, I don't have any spinach. Oh, I've got dandelions out in my lawn. I went out and picked some dandelions and I used the dandelions instead of spinach. And I was like, wow, God provides everything that we need. And I feel like the main message of the Lord's Way to Wealth is to really receive the abundance and prosperity that God already has promised us. That's really the ultimate lesson of the Lord's Way to Wealth. And it, again, is like a step-by-step process.
I love it because I think that the whole thing's important. I would agree with her 100%. I wish I was in that mastermind. I wish it was not going. I knew it was going on. But ultimately, she said it. I think the last sentence sums up everything about wealth. Literally everything about wealth. And if you don't believe in God or you choose not to believe in God, however you want to say that, it doesn't change the facts of the second half of that statement. You must learn to receive. You have to learn to receive. People in general think that it's wrong to receive, that it feels icky to receive because then I'm not self-reliant. Look, there's in no way, shape, or form is anybody on this planet self-reliant. It's not happening. There's just no way you're ever going to be self-reliant completely. So stop pretending you are, right? Because no matter what happens, if literally the sun wasn't here, water wasn't here, earth wasn't, what would you be? You'd be floating off in space, self-reliant. And you'd die because you aren't self-reliant, okay? So let's get that out of our head. Learning to receive is essential. What I love, so Wylene, I'm going to talk, I don't know how many podcasts you have, but at least one of them I know she has is about gratitude. And it's crucial because learning to be grateful for everything is part of learning to receive. Learning to recognize how grateful that there's sunlight and receive the gratitude that there's sunlight. Receive the gratitude that there's transportation. I talk to people about taxes and say, hey, you like paying taxes? Well, the social norm is to say, no, we hate taxes, right? Because that's the calling card of resist the government or they're stealing from us or whatever. And believe me, I'm full on board with most conspiracy theories. However, I am so grateful that I don't have to go out and do road construction. I'm so grateful that somebody made whatever sewer system works so that I can have running water and a toilet. And all I have to do is pay taxes and all that just works every week. I'm thrilled about that. I'm so grateful for the ability to pay somebody else to make sure that I have those amenities in my life, okay? So learning to be grateful for every aspect of life is crucial. So talk a little bit about your podcast so they can see why they all just need to go download it and listen to it and maybe participate in it one day.
Yes, my podcast is a little bit different than most people's. You actually, it is like a mastermind. Everybody who comes on live, as many people as want to, can come on live, and we actually create it in the moment. It is totally inspired. I get up in the morning, I have no idea what it's going to be on. We start at 7 a.m. Mountain Time, and we do a couple rounds of gratitude just to kind of get us warmed up and to find out what everybody's on their hearts today. And then I choose a subject and we focus on gratitude for this. So today was gratitude for freedom of expression. That was what we focused on today. And then we just do a little 90-second private meditation, and then everybody shares what they got. And that is what and I take them through a meditative process at the end. So we'd love to have you join. I do have a Facebook group, but if you want to find out everything about it, go to my website, wylenebenson.com/gratitude, and that will take you to the page that talks all about the gratitude call, why it's important to have gratitude in your life. There's video on how to do your own daily gratitude practice. Just everything that you need to know about gratitude is there. And yes, we would love to have you join us.
Awesome. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask this last question before we go into some of these other things. As far as how you can support her, connect with her on Facebook, Instagram, join her groups. We've kind of sprinkled those throughout here. Hopefully she'll send us the links, so they'll be in the show notes. But can you, when you were talking about what your seven gateways are, the first one you said is faith. So I'm curious, what is faith to you?
Faith to me is knowing that you are enough and that you are worthy to receive everything you need at the moment that you need it. It's faith that you are enough, and that whatever you don't have right now, or whatever you haven't, currently received, when you do need it, that you're worthy, that you'll receive it. That's faith.
No, I love it. The reason I asked her, and I didn't know what she was going to answer, so don't be like, oh, that was primed. I literally have no idea, other than that from this conversation and knowing what she's been able to create, I figured we'd have a very similar definition, okay? But here's the deal, and this is why I want to point this out, because there's a large population out there who believe that faith is, you can only have faith if it's connected to Jesus Christ or connected to some religious figure. And the irony is, it's people who, they choose to take some things literal and then other things not literal. Okay? When people are, and I'm a religious person, okay? So when we're using religious language, when we're talking about faith, the first step, if we want to say the first step of the gospel, is faith in Jesus Christ. Okay? Which is perfect, but people rarely dissect that and recognize that faith is a verb and it's an action word. It stands alone, and we're choosing to apply it to Jesus Christ. In that context, we're choosing to apply faith to Jesus Christ, not that faith and Jesus Christ are inseparably connected and that there's no way to have one without the other. Faith is a standalone process, and it has more to do with your ability to act in confidence that what you need will be there when you need it, and less about Jesus Christ. It's important now, in my opinion, I'm a religious person. I believe in Jesus Christ. That's the religion that I subscribe to. That it is important to have that same faith in Jesus Christ and put your trust in him and believe that he will be there to support you and help you in your need. But you also need to have faith in the Son. I have faith that my car starts in the morning, and when my faith is broken and my car doesn't start, it sucks. Okay, like, has that happened? It happens. Okay, but 90% of the time, I operate from a position of faith that it's going to start. Okay, I act as if that's the reality, and anytime it's not the reality, then I have to figure out what else I'm going to do and get that back to being my reality. So I wanted to touch on that because I think faith is such a misused and completely misunderstood word. And so I was talking to my sister about this, and we were having a conversation about Christ. And same type of thing. And this will be in my book. My book is going to take years to write as well, mostly because I procrastinate and I haven't found. I'm trying to determine, as you said, is it going to be a textbook or is it going to be like this is my experience? How do I communicate my experience? That is why it takes so long to write my capstone book, I would say. But when we think about Christ, or you could use faith, I think of it like the difference between a butter knife. Okay, we've all used a butter knife, and just the general term knife. Okay, and even a butter knife. If you are one who's ever used a butter knife and you were raised, so I have some people who I know who are raised where they only used a butter knife for butter. And if they were going to cut their steak, they used a steak knife. And if they were going to use, right? Well, I know people who are like that, where they only use a specific, I don't know, they're not a utensil. Is it a utensil? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Use a specific utensil for what it's used for or what its name is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if I were to use that butter knife, I used it for my butter, cleaned it off, and then I used it for my jam. There are people who think that I'm absolutely wrong and you shouldn't ever use a butter knife for jam or peanut butter or to cut your tomatoes. And the reality is, I'm not upset that that person only sees a butter knife as being useful for butter. I personally see faith and Christ both being useful for many circumstances, not just for what some people believe it's used for. So rather than judging that person for having a limited scope of what Christ and faith can be used for in their life, I have compassion because I believe that I have more utility of this concept, faith in Christ, than they do. So rather than judging them for having a limited scope of understanding, have compassion for that individual and love and seek by showing them that there's more capacities or more uses for that concept, that they will join you in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I actually love that concept. When you were talking about the butter knife, I was thinking, or like for a screwdriver, because sometimes I use it for a screwdriver.
It's the same way. Yeah. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the tool is. I like using a knife because my belief is, from a religious perspective, that Christ, the concept of Christ, is to help explain to a child and adults, right? Anybody, that we don't need to continue to feel negative energy, and that we need to systematically, ritualistically release negative energy, release guilt, shame, release judgment, all those negative, the negative side of energy. We need to release that and remain more in the positive love and abundance energy. And so we have this concept that we call Christ in the narrative of Christianity, and it allows us to get in a headspace where we can visualize that separation of negative and positive energy. And that's the same. A knife's purpose is literally to separate. It's literally to create separation between two things. So I like, there's more visualistic, what's the word? Not poetry, but symbolism. There's more symbolism using a knife and Christ in the same for me, because of the way I believe and have faith in Christ.
Can I add something to that as
Please
well? When you're talking about Christ and like the many, different uses or whatever, using that kind of as an analogy, I worked in the jail system for a couple of years teaching a class called Prime for Life. And I had a guy come as a guest speaker one time who was, had been like totally down bottom of the barrel, alcoholism, drug abuse, everything, and was really had come from a negative space. And he said that he didn't consider himself a religious person, but every day he would get on his knees and talk out loud. And so that was what he called it, was getting on his knees and talking out loud. And if it serves you, I personally, Jesus Christ and God, if I thought that I had to figure everything out myself and that it was just me and there wasn't some higher power that I could turn to, if I had, a need, I don't even know where I would be. Like, to me, it's so comforting to know that there is a higher power that I can turn to. And if you just see that higher power as something that you can just go on your knees and talk out loud and have, some inspiration, some inspired thoughts come into your mind. If that's what feels, if that helps to fill that need of having something beyond yourself, then that's great. To me, that's what God and Jesus Christ is.
Yep. More power to you. More power to you. Awesome. So, man, we have to move on and close this thing out, but there's just not enough time. You guys need to go check out her content, be part of her gratitude call, and really get engaged with, especially right now, we're recording this during the coronavirus. There's never been a need for more light, love, joy, abundance thinking than ever before. Oh, this is random, but call back to earlier in the conversation. You might think she was nuts for going out and picking dandelion and using that instead of spinach. Don't knock it till you try it, because dandelion leaves aren't that bad. And in fact, when dandelions are in full yellow bloom, if you make battered dandelion, like get the dandelion heads and batter, like deep fried dandelion heads with some salt and pepper, it's actually pretty good. Like, we're homeschooled, so we got up to a lot of weird stuff, but it's actually pretty good. So don't knock it till you try it. She's not crazy. And dandelion leaves are generally healthier than most of the other produce you're going to get out of the store, because it's more natural, came from the soil. And it's just the things that are not common. They're pretty bitter from my experience. So it's not like the best tasting thing always, but it's like arugula. Arugula is not sweet either, but it's super good.
I found that the fresher they are, the less bitter they are. So, that's a little tip too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, anybody's going to go make out in dandelion salad, that's how you do it. Perfect. So we're gonna hop into the next section here called Legacy on Rapid Fire. So there's 5 questions we're going to ask, and looking for 1 word to 1 sentence answers. It doesn't have to be 1 word, doesn't have to be 1 sentence. But if I want more clarification, I'm going to ask for it. Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay, let's do this. So the first question is, what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy?
I would say that the one thing that's holding me back is belief. Several things came to me and I was like, nope. It's really just believing that I can. It's, all these other things that kind of come into your head. Oh, it needs, I need more cash flow. I need this, I need that. I need more time, whatever. That all boils down to, do I believe it?
Mm-hmm. I love it. So that's huge. What are your beliefs? That's actually one of the things that I wrote down on my notes here is, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe you're worth? So next question is, what is the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
Hardest thing that I've ever accomplished, or the thing that I'm like most proud of, I guess, is I went to Peru. This was after the heart attack. I went to Peru. I went to my doctor and got okay to go do this. Hiked the Laras Trek, which is a 16,000 foot hike, and starts at 11,000 feet, goes up to 16,000 feet and down the other side. And they called me the Energizer Bunny, because I was just like kept going and going and going. And there was one girl who went blind at the top of because of the pressure, the altitude. It was just temporary, it came back. There was another guy who became delirious, and there were 2 or 3 guys who, because of their mass, because they were bigger, just the pressure was so intense that they had a hard time breathing. And I was just like this little Energizer Bunny. So that was probably my biggest accomplishment. Sorry, I'm not keeping these to 1 word.
No, that's
sorry.
But you kind of answered the second question, which is, what is your greatest success to this point in your life?
Greatest success, I'm probably my book, The 7 Gateways. The thing that I'm most grateful for, that I'm able to get that out to people. And now the Lord's Way to Wealth is just like the next step beyond that.
Awesome. And what is one secret habit, mindset, or behavior that you believe contributes most to your success?
That one's easy. My daily GPS, gratitude, prayer, and scripture. And if you want to find out more about that, reach out to me on, any of the social media platforms or my website, wylenebenson.com.
Fantastic. Love it. And lastly, what book or books would you recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
There is a book that I had the privilege of co-authoring with a special edition with the author. He was my first coach that I hired, mindset coach that I hired, and we co-wrote a special edition of his book, Limitless. And it has the process, the 9-step breakthrough process that he used with me to help me to heal my heart.
Awesome. So that one, and then also both of her other books, or her other book, The 7 Gateways. Go read that one as well. And then
those are all on my website, just so you know.
Awesome. And here's the last question. So this is my favorite question because it gets to help us see how in alignment people are with what's most important. So this is the question of what legacy are you building? So we're going to pretend that you actually died, or you're actually dead at this point, and we're now talking 6 generations from now. So this is your great, 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 great grandchildren. They're sitting around a table. You get the opportunity to kind of listen in to what they're saying. What do you want them to be saying about your life and your legacy 6 generations from now?
I want to be remembered for connecting the whole human family. That everyone living their legacy, living their purpose, and building each other. That if we live true to who we are, there's no way that you're in competition with any person. And it just creates a natural sense of community and closeness. And so that's what I want to be known for, is to be creating that sense of community and closeness with each other.
I love it. You're not in competition, you're complementing. I think that's huge. Like, you're not in competition, you're complementing if everybody lives in their purpose. It doesn't matter how many of you guys are doing what seems to be the same thing. There's so many people out there who help people with their money, and nobody's like me, right? Nobody is Sam Knickerbocker. And for better or worse, I mean, there's people who don't like me because I'm too direct. I just am maybe brash or what's the word? What is that word? Curt is the word. Short, frank, just very, very direct. But then there's a lot of people who do like me. And the people who don't like me, they still need to understand how money works, and they're going to go work with somebody else who they feel like they fit better with. And that's okay. I'm not here to help everybody. Not because I don't want to, and not because my heart doesn't want to, but just because if I were to be a chameleon to help more people, that's not productive for anybody. And we don't need more of everybody else. We just need Sam to be Sam, Wylene to be her, and you to be you. So I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom. Please go connect with her and be part of her gratitude. If not, even just listen to it is a fantastic thing to do if you're not going to be part of it. But I love it all. Excited for this to come out, and excited for your online course. Excited to see how that goes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. We'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.